is in the group now, and so is Dana. Uh, Kimberly is one of our new team members, and you also know Dana. Hey, y'all. You don't have to have your camera
Good
on.
morning.
Hey, good morning. I'm just waiting for everybody, well, to see if more people are gonna come in, and I'll start directly on 11 o'clock. Okay, y'all?
Good morning.
Good morning, Haja. I know you're not feeling good. I'm sorry for you not feeling good.
Oh,
Do you know how to record this meeting?
I think it is being recorded.
Oh, okay. Don't judge
I'm not judging you.
me.
But
Antonio, how are you?
just,
Antonio, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, no, no. No, go for it. Go for it.
Antonio is one of my old battle buddies from the Army. Thank you for coming.
Awesome. I was going to say, whenever I got on, it told me
Okay,
that it was recording.
okay. Okay, and we're going to start. Everybody, if you don't know me, my name is Marquita Foxworth. Basically, everybody in here should know me. Most of the people here are on my team or served with me in the military. This was intended for a lot of my family members who said that they needed this information. So we're going to record this so they can have this when they're not sleeping on a Saturday. So thank you for being here, Selena.
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with all of you. So thank you for having me.
Okay, so this is not just your regular home buyer seminar. I wanted to change it up a little bit and talk about the creating wealth and prosperity within your family. Because lately, I've been dealing with a lot of clients that have had issues with the things that we're going to be talking about. Okay, so we're going to be talking about building generational wealth through real estate. What is really generational? Oh, look, my son is in here. I'm so sorry. Okay, so what is generational wealth? Wealth that's passed down from generation to generation. Basically, in the olden days, they didn't really have the means to pass back to pass down real estate. So they would find the most responsible person in their family and pass it down. So recently, we've in our own family identified some issues with that. So they were trying to circumvent trust and things of that nature, but what they didn't realize is they left a whole generation of family out, and we don't want to do anything like that. And why real estate works for generational wealth. Um, Appreciation potential, passive income, and there's a lot of tax advantages. I know recently, Selena just recently taught me something about cost segregation when it comes to taxes and your rental properties. And if that's something that you guys want to talk about, we have a CPA that is really amazing, and we have resources for any of these questions that y'all may have. Another way real estate works for generational wealth is the legacy and assets, tangible things that can be passed down from generation to generation, and not just straight up selling the property when somebody dies, and laying a foundation within your family. So financial education, when your kids are little, start teaching them about saving, start telling them the importance of budgeting, real estate investments, the benefit of real estate as a wealth benefit, and a strategy. So we together are your wealth strategists when it comes to real estate, because Selena will help with the numbers and I'll help identify the properties, as well as the people on my team. And for each person, you have to have a different strategy based on your finances. Stocks and bonds and other investments. One of the biggest things that I learned while I was in the Army was about stocks and bonds. So a couple of officers were staying during lunch and they were investing. And I was like, what are y'all doing? Are we playing? We just checking our stock portfolio. And that was when I learned about stocks, and they told me about I'm letting a few people in, I'm sorry. They told me about buying low and selling high. I'm like, what does that mean? So there's a lot of tips and tricks that I use myself. I am not a stock expert, but I know a little something. I know how to kind of get started, and I know who to point you to the right direction of. And making sure you diversify. Don't just put all of your money in one basket. So one of the things that I did personally with the help of a CPA was I took money from one of the stocks that I had during COVID and purchased an income property. That property consistently gives me money over and over to pay for certain things that I want to consistently have. Estate planning. I cannot express this enough. Make sure we have estate planning, either a will or a trust. So with wills, it basically tells you who gets your assets. And with trust, it avoids probate. So you have a little bit more control of how that goes, right? I'll tell you a few horror stories. I've had 3 people come to me within the last year about situations with their family. Unfortunately, family members pass away. And when you are using government assistance and things of that nature, Medicare will put a Medicare lien on your property. There's a lot of people that don't know that, and they don't know how to get around that. And another thing that has been coming up is, okay, I'm going to pass my property right before I pass away to my child or my whoever. And so there's a look back time period for that. And so they'll still try to get you for that. So when you're signing that paperwork and you don't realize the questions that they're asking you is to put a lien on your property. So we can also help with those things as well. This is not to scare you. This is some real stuff that is really happening, and people are really oblivious. If you get Medicare, if you have somebody, home health services come in your house, there's a possibility if they own property, that property will have a lien on it. And when they pass, they will send you a $44,000 bill ish. I know that in Texas. And so too, with estate planning, you minimize tax efficiency. So estate taxes are a thing. And when you pass away, they do tax your property when it's sold. So the best thing to do is to make sure you get with an estate planner and make sure that you figure out what's best for you and your family. In a family trust. I'll tell you a little situation that I didn't even know. I went through some courses when Michaela was around, and I did not know. It was so much that I didn't know. And A person who is on certain benefits cannot have property or accounts in their name. So if you pass away and you leave money to someone, then that money will be taken by the state. So this is really important, and I'm talking to you from personal experience, okay? Stocks and bonds. Do research and make sure you diversify stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You know how your kids want these expensive toys. Stop giving it to them. Give them a little bit, but also put money in stocks and bonds for your children and grandchildren. Protecting your wealth, asset protection. Make sure that you get with a specialist to help you with these things, and we have resources for you. Set up LLCs to protect your assets and liabilities, and consider insurance for additional coverage. Tax planning. Work with a tax advisor to minimize tax liabilities and strategies about depreciation, like we were talking about before. Insurance. I cannot express this enough. So, did you know that if someone passed away and their death is unknown, insurance may not pay out? It may not pay out. And so you're probably going to be left footing the bill on some of these things. So it's really important that we build our savings and we take these things seriously, because life happens and it happens before you know it. So yeah, passing wealth down to the next generation. Make sure you start a family business. Talk to your family about business, and figure out who's going to run that business if something happens to you, and put that in writing. Communication and family dynamics. Talk about money openly. I know that when I was young, my mom, she knew what she knew, and I think she's in here, and I love her so much. But Mama, don't kill me for saying this. But when we were growing up, she said, if you don't have it, don't get it. Don't get no credit cards. So that's what she was taught, and that was their experience. But when I joined the Army, I learned something completely different, and I figured out that credit cards and credit is leverage if you're responsible with it, and you teach this to your family. And so what I'm trying to teach to my family and hold these types of meetings is some type of responsibility. Philanthropy. So Selena and I are on the board of a nonprofit called Servolution. And one of the things that I'm taking from this is how to incorporate your legacy into philanthropy and giving back. Make sure you teach your kids the importance of giving back. Set up a family foundation and teach the value of charitable giving, because not only is it a tax deduction, it is also emotionally fulfilling. Like, I cannot explain what I'm feeling in these moments when I'm at the veteran meetup, which we're playing hooky right now, and we supposed to be we supposed to be there, but somebody's holding it down so we can do this, because this is really important to me. But there's a lot of people that come and volunteer and fix houses, and pray over people. That was literally people that were homeless that came off the street to help. Like, you don't have a home, but you're helping. And that said a lot about them. But it's more than just a financial decision. It's a spiritual, emotional, and it gives them sense of purpose. So action plan. So start now. Start creating a legacy, even if you don't think you have much. Let's have that conversation about what we can do and how we can even help your kids. So right now it's time to start teaching our kids about finances. What, they're 18, 19, they're in between 18 and 20 some years old. Let's start teaching them about these things, teaching them about budget and financial responsibility, and laying the groundwork for our future generations, because you don't want all of your hard work to be taken by the government because we didn't structure things properly. Okay. And so step 3, contact us. we're here. We're here. I know it seems like that I'm not accessible, but if you text me that you want to talk, I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna call you and we're gonna have a conversation and we're gonna strategize. I had a family member call me the other day and they were asking how can they help their children. There are so many people that do not know that you can do a family gift funds, right? So there your child can get a property. There's so many people that do it, but there's also so many people that don't know about it. And with that being said, um, do you guys have any questions? And I think we're going to roll it into Selena's presentation. Okay, no questions. Okay, Selena.
I have a question. Would you say that it's common or uncommon that people, when they start wanting to know more about these subject matters that you've taught us about today, that people have a hard time kind of formulating their questions? Would you say you run into that a lot with people?
Right.
Hmm.
A great deal. They don't even know where to start. They end up calling us with the problem instead of
Right.
getting ahead of the problem. And it's very emotional. And I recognize that. And I recognize that we have the information to help generations.
We do. We do. And it's okay if you don't have the words to formulate the questions. Like, Marquita, I love that you shared how you first got familiarized with stocks and bonds. I mean, we're not taught these things in school, and our parents send us to school to learn things, and then we come out on the other side with math and arithmetic and this and that. But like how we utilize these things to learn and to grow. And I will just say that I've always put myself at the very front of the classroom and I'm like a sponge. And I know you are the same way because we put ourselves in classrooms together strategically. But I mean, we talk about the things that kind of struck something within us, and we start trying to like dissect what that is and how we can utilize that for our families and then share that with our clients. So that's my favorite part about what we do
Yeah.
together. And I'm glad to be here on a Saturday morning, and I think my son needed to be in this class as well. So shout out to Deshaun for being here with us. Very important. Sometimes we take for granted the things that we know. And in real estate, I will say that, it applies to what we know. All of these things, this class and the things I'm going to go over here, they apply to real estate, but real estate applies to our lives and our families and also our legacy. So I am in love with real estate. That is my number one hobby is working hard for people to help them accomplish these things. So I'm going to share some things that are a little bit, we're going to kind of make it a little broad and then we're going to bring a few things home. And so what I would like for people to do is I want you to jot down something that maybe street like it strikes a chord with you, something that makes you raise your antennas up and say, I'd like to know more about that. And I want people to be brave at the end to unmute and ask a question because somebody else is probably thinking the same thing. And that's how we all learn and grow. But we're going to get a little granular on a few things that I feel like, Marquita, that people maybe have some misconceptions about with mortgage. And so I just want to kind of like clear the air on some of that today as well. My name is Selena Ward. I got into real estate in North Fort Worth, of all places. That's where Marquita lives. That's where I live. If you live in Texas, you live in, especially in Dallas, Fort Worth, you live in a big metropolitan area, and there's lots of people to help here and lots of opportunity to get experience. But I will say that in 2001, things looked very, very different here. Not like they do now. And I feel like that wasn't very long ago, but now I'm aging myself, so I'm not going to talk about that. But things have certainly do look different. And I think that because we have this data that we can study in real estate and how home values rise, I think I've got a pretty valid argument today that owning your real estate is your number one wealth builder. Okay, so I want everybody to have access to information when it comes to mortgage and debunk anything that might be holding you back from asking questions. I've been with Benchmark for 12 years. We do specialize in core values of success, relationship, being dynamic. I think that's what you're doing when behind the scenes to help your clients when they don't even know. Being excellent at what you do and having a positive attitude. Um, I do just point out that on some of our reviews that we help first-time home buyers a lot. We put plans together for people where they feel comfortable about what they're doing before they fall in love with homes. Usually it's the other way around, right? Like we're scrolling and we're looking at houses, we're on HGTV, whatever, and we think, oh, I want that. Well, what if you could be empowered about having that because you've had a consultation? Marquita and I, we specialize in consultation. So again, we're not just putting the cart before the horse. We want people to have a real plan, real strategy, and feel good about it. So that way, buying a house can be a really monumental, positive experience for you. There are a few people that are involved in the process. I always like to say that I kind of oversee everything. Marquita and I are literally watching every little piece of this to make sure that it clicks together. So we work together in tandem as a team, but obviously having your mortgage strategy and then having your real estate agent, Marquita picked out, then she's going to be able to work with the seller on your behalf. She's going to be able to work just as we will with the title company. There's a home inspector that is also involved, and Marquita would walk you through all of that. And then I'm going to help you with the homeowner's insurance piece. So rather than like pinging you around to these different people, we're actually laying it out before you to say, these are the things that we need you to do, and this is the time to focus. And then we help you make sure that it's a good idea to buy that home. I mean, you might be under contract and have a home inspection and decide, yeah, no, this is not the house for me. Doesn't mean that home ownership is not for you. It means that we got to find the right house that makes perfect sense. And obviously, finding a home that has good quality is going to be really important. I like to talk about interest rates a little bit with people because what I know is that there are a lot of millennials that are sitting on the sidelines. And so I study this data, but specifically, I want to point this out that the reason why I hear, what I hear anyway, from millennials and a lot of buyers, that they're waiting to ask questions or start the process of learning is because they're waiting for interest rates to come down. And Marquita knows how I feel about this because it wasn't that long ago that we saw a different real estate market. So, if you own your house, then this doesn't bother you too much, what I'm about to show you. But if you don't own your house, then you might say she's not wrong because the values have certainly done just that. And that is that since 2020, home values have gone up by 50%. Now, we had some really, really monstrous years where we saw, 19% in just 1 year, unheard of that home values would go up like that. But if we could really dissect on this graph here on the right by Case-Shiller, that we see double-digit appreciation when interest rates are at their lowest. Okay. Buyers that are waiting for interest rates to come down, wait to enter into the market all at the same time. And then you find yourself in multiple offers. And then you find yourself having a really hard time to negotiate terms that make home ownership more affordable for you. And it sounds a little bit like an oxymoron. It's like, well, if interest rates are higher than where they were, how are you going to make that more affordable? Well, that's what we do. We work on putting a plan together to meet you where you're at. What is it that you need? Do you need closing costs and prepaids? Do you need a down payment assistance that'll cover your down payment and the seller pay for the rest? How much do you need to have saved to get the process started? Things like a initial earnest money deposit, right? Or home inspections. We talk to you about all of that because the timing is incredibly important. But I think the biggest thing that I want to point out is that the timing is incredibly important. So what I mean by the timing is incredibly important when it comes to home values, it's that it would be easier for you to enter into the idea of becoming a homeowner when you don't have as much competition. So right now, sellers will pay your closing costs. It's actually been a lot of fun, hasn't it, Marquita? Like we're seeing buyers starting to win. We're seeing buyers be able to buy that didn't need to have 20, $30,000 saved up, right? Like now we can get in with very little money out of pocket and you can start building wealth right away. Interest rates are expected to come down a little over the year, but rates are never really expected to return to as low as they were. So that's the pill we have to swallow and say, okay, well, they're not going to come down. Then, is it hurting me to wait or would it help me to buy? What are these, what are these answers to these questions? And one of the things that I like to point out is according to the bars over here that are yellow and blue here on this graph is that we don't have enough homes for the amount of people that we have. Now, if you live in DFW, you already know that's true because they'll literally build an apartment complex like 5 foot off the shoulder of the road, it feels like. I mean, the freeways are just being saturated with apartments because there's just not enough homes. So then what I would say is that for the people that have gained a lot of equity over the years, they've gained a lot of equity because of simple economics. Okay. So super simple economics, supply and demand. Okay. So there's a big demand for homes. There's not as much available for people. That's why people are even getting sometimes into bidding wars over rentals and things like this, waiting list to get in. So you have a great opportunity to be on the other side of that coin, and that's where you're gaining the wealth. Like you're gaining the appreciation because you own that house, and it's worth a lot more in times where there's a scarcity of it. There's not as many. And to kind of like point this out, I would say you'd have to kind of think about the generations, right? You got to think about what do we need right now as a society, and housing is a concern. It just is. It has been for a long time, since probably about 2016. We've seen multiple offers most of the time. So when we get excited about, hey, let's go help buyers, we're talking about like the windows open and we're pulling you through saying, let me show you this thing that's happening right now, because it doesn't happen always. And that's because of the size of generations right now. And if you think about the people that are selling right now, a lot of them, and this is why I just love Marquita's part, a lot of them are baby boomers. They are trying to reposition themselves to be able to age in place, to be able to have longevity and quality of life. And sometimes that means that you got to unhook from the house that you own because it's pulling you down, it's too much. And you've got to be able to reposition yourself to maybe closer to your doctors, an easier commute around, or maybe closer to family. But this is our largest population of sellers right now are the baby boomers, and they've taken really great care of their homes. For the most part, pretty good bones. You can get a good house. And they're not so really bajiggity, if you will, about the interest rate. They've seen interest rates in the 80s and other times as well, where interest rates were 13 to 18%. So the interest rates being in the sixes doesn't really bother them too much. But I really kind of just want to point out the fact that as we get into the millennials and Gen Z, we are another big population of people. Okay, so just as we needed more things for the baby boomers, we need to have more things for the millennials and the Gen Z. So it's very important that your kids learn about this because this is them, and even more so than us, because the Gen X wasn't all that big of a population of people. And so here we go, and we're growing, growing. And then I wanted to just kind of point out, and I sure hope I put it in here, but maybe I didn't. I thought I did. I wanted to point out that right now, in previous generations, so like Gen X and baby boomers, 55% of them own their homes. So there must be something about this generational wealth, right? Because we can learn a thing or two sometimes by our parents and our grandparents, to Marquita's point, and how these things pass on is incredibly important. But also just taking note of the fact that somebody bought something that's worth something is really the first step of putting action into motion. And so you have a lot of people, like I mentioned, that are kind of sitting on the sidelines. But really, millennials, only about 33% of millennials right now own their home. And it should be closer to 45. And like I said, Gen X and baby boomers, 55% of them. So we know that there is a big, big population of people that are expected to enter back into this real estate market. And furthermore, guess what? Gen Z has now joined. 8% of Gen Zs are now becoming homeowners. I mean, our younger youngsters, if you will, they're inquisitive. They want to understand everything. So I would always volunteer to teach a class like this to help anybody, young or old, it doesn't matter. But I want to just prove my point here that, guys, real estate's not going to get any cheaper. If supply and demand is what drives up the cost, and interest rates kind of drive that because people are waiting for something like interest rates to come down, all it takes is just a headline news or a commercial on the radio, or you talk to somebody that bought a house and you start to realize, look, the best time to buy is when there's inventory for you to choose from. The best time to buy is when you can offset any of your cost or risk over to the seller because they're willing to negotiate for you. When rates come down, buyers are competing against each other. But when buyers are not entering into the market so heavily right now, and you have an abundance of baby boomers and people that have got to make some life decisions and they're listing their homes, you have sellers that are competing against each other. So if you're a buyer, what do you want? Do you want to be competing with other buyers, or do you want sellers competing for you? That's what's happening. Sellers are competing for offers right now. So they're doing things like dropping their sales price a little bit, or like negotiating to pay your out-of-pocket expenses. People will often ask me, like, well, when is the perfect time to buy? Because if I see sales prices starting to go down, I mean, I'm going to wait for these sales prices to return to where they were, and then I'll buy. Well, that would be a mistake. Just like interest rates. If you're waiting for interest rates to come back up or go back down, they will never get to what we're used to hearing. I hate to say that. I'm 42 years old. When I first got into real estate in 2001, I remember interest rates had come from 8 to 6. Now, I don't know. I was just a little baby then, so I didn't have anything to compare it to. But all I can tell you is real estate was selling in North Fort Worth like hotcakes. I worked for a big builder. I worked for D.R. Horton Homes, and we were busy, and interest rates were 8, 6. And for many, many years as a lender, I've seen interest rates in the 4s and the 5s. We're at 6. We're in the 6s right now. So, we're not far off, but we just have it in our head sometimes that sounds too high. These sales prices, they don't come back down. It's like going to your favorite restaurant, and they, the price of food and things, inflation has caused prices to rise. They reprint their menu. They don't reprint them back and then give you a lower cost later on when they get all that figured out. The seller is going to want to keep margin. The seller is going to want to keep as much of the equity as they can, and homes are appraising. Sellers don't really have to give up so much, except they're just competing with each other so much, and they're a little bit impatient. So they'll give up some of their equity to get your offer, to get your attention, to get their home sold. The problem with finding rock bottom, guys, is that you won't even know where rock bottom is until you're on the other side. So we are very, very close to rock bottom right now. Don't let like reduced sales prices fool you into thinking that they have to do that. Homes are appraising at the full amount. I'm not seeing any appraisal issues around here. Homes are worth it. And a lot of times they come in higher, meaning that the seller's given up a little profit. But they're doing it because they understand one common thing, and that is affordability drives the whole action, right? So you have to do things right now to help people. And it's really nice. It feels really good that sellers are helping buyers right now. But they're only doing it, let's be honest, because they have less competition, less buyer competition anyway. Okay. But when we are at a place where we have more buyers entering to the market, multiple offers, the confidence to the seller goes way up. And at that point, you've missed the rock bottom. Okay. Then now you're on the other side of it, and the cost can be rather high. This was one of the things that I was mentioning a second ago, and that is just where millennials are right now 33% of millennials, when they hit 30, um, became homeowners. Right now, about 45%, but we expect that when they hit 40, that number is going to increase to 55%. And now you've got another big push of buyers. As I mentioned just a second ago, this is actually what I was looking for to show you, but you can see that there's a built up amount of people that are going to be re-engaging into the market fairly soon, I believe. And I think that's great when you own your home, because that's appreciation. Your home value goes up faster. But I would encourage us to have a conversation about what this does mean to your overall purchasing plan. If this is something you want to do, purchase home, we want to make sure that we talk to you about what the entry point looks like. You know, what is the cost of getting, a home? So your out of pocket expense is a big part of what we talk about, and then your overall payment as well. So when you decide that you want to start unpacking the pre-approval and having a consultation with us, we create absolute certainty around the fact that we have a plan that's been pre-underwritten, and that we have something that we can offer to you that you can use or choose not to. But either way, you're going to come out on the other side much more educated about what kind of mortgage position you're in to buy a home. We look at assets. Sometimes that's just, using the money that you have for a down payment. Sometimes it's a gift from a family member. Sometimes that is a down payment assistance program, or if you're a veteran, 100% financing, USDA, 100% financing. So obviously, we just got to know, is there a down payment to the program that we're looking at? And where does that down payment come from? Your credit history, 65% of your credit, well, I think I have that in here actually, but 65% of your credit is the time in which the accounts that you have been opened. And then the other is the utilization. So the thing that I see that hurts people the absolute most is when people are working on building their credit. And so they'll open up a couple of credit cards. And then, so say in the last 2 years, and so they're fairly new. I call that baby credit, and there's nothing wrong with baby credit, but it's graded a little bit harder because there's not a real evaluation, because it's still short-term credit. So you haven't had it very long. If you open up a $500 like Amazon card or something, and then you put $500 on that card, that looks like more like a Mayday, more like an emergency, and you had to use a line of credit to pay for something that came up, rather than using it responsibly. Responsibly would be that you don't max it out. Okay. So I can teach you some things that you can do with credit that are pretty easy little adjustments that can make a big lift in your credit history. Your debt, we're pulling credit to see what liabilities we have. Sometimes things are on people's credit that they're not responsible for paying for. If you've been in a divorce and someone was ordered to pay for a car or pay for a house, then we don't have to tie those liabilities to you. We can exclude them. Employment and income go hand in hand. And I like to talk about these because this is where I feel like there's a little myth busting that can happen. A lot of times I talk to people and they say, I haven't been on my job for 2 years. Is that okay? The guideline isn't, have you been on your job for 2 years? The guideline is, do you have 2 years of work history that I can validate? So if you say, well, I've been working for a year, but I took 3 years off because I was a stay-at-home mom, but I worked for 3 years at this other company, I've got to go back to that company and validate that you worked there. And then I can use your new history. Like, you have history, it just may not be congruent, and that's okay. Sometimes this happens when people just switch careers. Doesn't necessarily mean we can't use your income. So I just want to debunk that, because I feel like people are like, if I'm not on the same job for 2 years, I can't get a loan. That's really just us not as a industry explaining what Dodd-Frank is, and also Dodd-Frank, just to mention, is a law that is in place on how income is calculated, so that way people don't get overextended. I'm not overextending anyone in these mortgages. Maybe it's more than what people think that they want to pay, but we do creative things like figure out ways to pay off a little bit of debt so we can reallocate those funds back to home ownership. Or we can there's some creative programs that obviously can help move those needles, but you qualify for these mortgages and the government makes sure of it. I carry a federal license to be able to be a mortgage banker, and we underwrite on guidelines that show that there's an ability for you to repay this mortgage. So I never feel like I'm putting anybody into a situation that they can't handle. Okay. Now, if it feels like it's more than what you want to handle, then we have to start identifying what sales price you're most happy at, what loan amount that would be, and kind of backing into a plan like that before anyone, really goes in and gets in the car and starts making offers on homes. So having the plan, super duper important. But I wanted to mention that these things we can navigate through each one of these, and we can even build on circumstances. For example, Marquita and I serve a lot of veterans together. And so that means that people are getting out of service, starting their civilian life, and we're having to piece these worlds together. And I just had a guy move here from Colorado Springs. He just retired. He was a MP, and then he got a job down in DeSoto, and he is a police officer there. So being able to use, like, he hadn't started his job, but I had that offer saying that this is what he was going to make. He hadn't gotten his retirement yet, but I already knew this is what he's allotted. I was able to put these things together and use these as a way to secure his qualifications for him because I knew how to work within the confinements of his income. Okay, so sometimes that's new jobs for people, sometimes that's switching jobs, but it's all part of your unique plan. This goes back to what I was saying about credit, and I had said, that a big part of your credit is how long your accounts have been open and what the utilization is. But there's so payment history is the big thing here. If you have credit cards that have a balance that's over 50% of the limit, do yourself a favor, get them down under 50. Okay, start there. Get them down under 20. Okay, and if you can, get them under 10, but don't take them to zero and leave them. Credit is a muscle, right? So for all my gym goers, like if you don't use it, atrophy sits in, it doesn't work anymore. Okay. So you want things reporting every month. So you want to keep the balance low and not put it all the way down to zero. Okay. And then diversifying your credit is also important. So not just having credit cards, but maybe also having, I'm not saying anyone go get any debt. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying don't take that from this, what I'm saying. Like, well, Selena said I needed to go get a loan because I got to diversify my credit. I'm just saying that sometimes that helps. And sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we need to get that new car after you bought the house, right? So like we got to put things in order, but credit does not scare me. I think the one thing, if I were you, that I would take from this class about credit is that it is like a helium balloon and it wants to go up. So if your credit is not going up, there is a weight on it. There's something on it that you have not seen before, or you don't know, or you thought that it's been 7 years and it fell off. And sometimes when you look at your credit, you go, wow, okay, that thing is still there and it's still wreaking havoc. And you need to make a phone call to somebody like maybe the debt collector and settle. Right? They bought it for pennies on the dollar. Call them and see if you can settle and ask them to delete it from your credit permanently. Can you permanently delete this from my credit and get back your points and stop that bleeding? And you'll notice your credit wants to go up. Okay. So that's my 2 cents on credit. But obviously I look at a lot of credit. Everybody has to credit qualify in different ways with different programs. But there are over 50 different grading cards. I only look at one. I look at the financial FICO. So what you're looking at is a consumer FICO, what I'm looking at is a financial FICO, and everything I'm looking at is built around an algorithm about mortgage. And keep in mind, And I don't say this to discourage you because you should not be discouraged. You should work with people that understand what these algorithms are because specifically, I'm helping you get a mortgage credit score, not just a credit score. Okay. So we have a little bit of fun with that, helping people do that. Also, we like to tell people don't go moving money around before you and I have a conversation. Don't open up new bank accounts, don't close out bank accounts, don't close out any credit cards, don't apply for any credit cards. Um, when you open an account, it drops your score 30 points. Okay, until you have at least 4 payments on that account. So it's going to drop you, and then you're going to have to sit there for just a little bit because remember, the jury's still out. Algorithm says, I don't know about this. Like, did they take this credit card out because they're in a 911 and they maxed it out? Let's just be honest. Like, most of us, if we go into somewhere like Best Buy, oh, you do a 0% interest, then you might just open up a card right there and max it out and not even think because you're not paying interest on it. So let's not open any new accounts. And let's not pay anything off. Let's just start with where we're at and see where we go from there. Also, cash, big, large deposits. We have to follow the Patriot Act after 9/11. So no money laundering, terrorism. I don't think any of you have to worry about any of that with. But because people would be putting illegal funds into real estate. Yes, they would, if they could. So then all of that has to be validated. So I always say, if you have mattress money, that's great. Keep accumulating cash, but we need to talk about how we use that and when we decide to put that into your bank account. Don't co-sign for other people. Now, I know that many of you are family, so I don't want to get into this because I'm the big sister and I have been asked. Okay, I have been asked. But one thing I will tell you is I never needed really a co-signer unless it was to buy a house. Because, auto loan, if they're just going off your credit, take care of your credit and you don't need a co-signer for most anything unless it's a mortgage. Now, if somebody wants to co-sign for you on a mortgage, I'm sure that you're going to be very respectful and make sure that you make all your payments on time. But if somebody gives you the gift of co-signing for you on a mortgage, I would say that's one of the greatest gifts you can ever receive and that you should treat that as such because that is a great, great opportunity for you to build wealth. So sometimes people do co-sign, but just maybe let's talk about how we're going to structure things before you do it. And then lastly, don't make any large purchases. Now is not a time to go buy a new car or finance furniture or any of those things. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is you have a snapshot of where you are today. And wherever you are is where you are. And to get to the next step means that somebody needs to come alongside you and show you what that looks like. And in order to do that, we have to see where you are. So everything is a strategy in your life. And this is one of those times where you get a chance to build a strategy. Our pre-approvals they're free. I don't charge you anything for a pre-qualification of pre-approval. I do a Zoom consultation with you, even, or you're welcome to come to my office. I'd love to see you. I'm in North Richland Hills, probably about 15, 20 minutes from Marquita's office, so not far. And we just encourage people. In fact, one of our code of ethics for from the CFPB for our federal license is that we're supposed to encourage everyone to get an opinion. So we're not supposed to discourage anyone. If someone says, I don't have great credit, we don't discourage you from applying. Because when we open everything up, when we look at it, we get a chance to really elevate your life by showing you some things that maybe you would not have known if somebody had discouraged you and you didn't try. So no such thing as a silly question. I didn't get into different loan types much today because we could really get into the weeds on things like that. But I hope, if anything, you know that there are a couple of people here for you, me and Marquita, that we are excited to share our knowledge to bless other people. So if you are interested, there's a QR code right there on the screen. You can take a quick, get your camera out and you can start applying, or just take my phone number down and just give me a call. I've talked to some of you before and helped you get started. So, there's no pressure here. It's just that it's something that's important to me, much like Marquita said, and it's my give back, and I'm very passionate about it. So, and then the last thing I will say is that if you know people that are looking to buy or sell real estate, I want you to call Marquita first. Even if you think it may be outside of her area, it's not. She is elite at what she does. She knows elite people everywhere. Same as me, I have people in every state that we can link arms with that we know and trust. And you're never too far away from getting everything that you need because we will facilitate those introductions for you. But that's all I really got today, Marquita. Was there anything else that you wanted me to talk about?
No, but I did have a memory. Do you remember when we went to that one class together and they showed the slideshow about how equity rich this country is?
Definitely.
So what people don't realize is the amount of things that they can do with the equity that they have, and they can actually help their children with that equity. So that is something that I really wanted to take home. And so if you have any questions about how to do that, or even refinance questions, Selena is here for you. I am here for you. I know a lot of you guys that are in here are on my team. We have a mutual client. I would like to shout her out that she is in here, Pamela Jones. Hey, Pam.
I saw her. Hey, Pamela.
I'm so happy that you're here. I know that you have some real estate questions, and maybe we can talk offline if you're not comfortable. But for everybody on here, do you have any questions? We're going to open it up for any questions whatsoever. It can be small, it can be huge. Does anyone have any questions?
Just so you guys know, a lot of times these questions come from just trying to validate the things you've heard, right? So it is a trust and verify process, and that's how you can verify what you know or what you've seen online. There's a lot of misinformation out there just by asking questions. So there's nothing we haven't heard before.
Okay, well, since there are no questions, um, this is the end of the presentation. I hope you found it a little bit more useful than your regular home buyer seminar. But to encourage you to create generational wealth, especially in this environment, we don't want the government coming after you for any type of debt that you had and now your kids got to pay for it. So I look forward to hearing from any of you about any questions you may have. So